Hey, Lieutenant Zander. Thanks for joining us today. We have a few questions, but if you could introduce yourself for everybody who's listening.
Sure. I'm Lieutenant Dan Zander from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, where I serve as the body camera program manager for that agency.
Great. What has been the agency's involvement with body-worn cameras in the recent past?
Well, we got into body cameras, we started examining them in 2012 as part of the collaborative reform process. And then shortly after the end of that process, we got our first grant from the National Institute of Justice to be part of the first large-scale randomized controlled test study on the efficacy of the cameras. And that got us 200 cameras, and we've since budgeted and purchased another 500. And then with the grant, we got a second 500. And so we're pretty much we're about 75% to full deployment of the cameras, about 1,650 cameras in our agency.
Great. Since you've been doing this for a while and you're part of the BJA's expert panel, can you give us your perspective on the greatest benefit and the greatest challenge regarding implementation of body-worn cameras in your agency?
Well, I think there's two, in my opinion, two primary benefits. One will be the benefit to the agency itself, in that it will help the agency improve its practices. The cameras will vindicate officers. They will end up validating a lot of what our officers do on a daily basis. You know, our officers go out on the street in very difficult situations on a daily basis, and the public doesn't really get to see that. Sometimes the agency itself doesn't even recognize the quality of the work that our men and women do. So I think that there's a lot of benefits for the agency. The second benefit is for the community. I think the community needs to see just exactly what we do and the tough conditions in which we work, and to help build that accountability, that transparency, the trust, and the credibility of the agency. Because law enforcement is under a lot of pressure right now and a lot of scrutiny, and I don't think we're not getting to tell the whole story. So I think it's important that that we do so, and I think body cameras are certainly part of that equation.
So that last one could be a benefit and a challenge.
It certainly is. It certainly could be a challenge. And of course, the challenge being how do you get it out in the public? How do we? What's that fine balance of accountability, but maintaining privacy? And I think one of the unintended consequences of the rapid deployment of body cameras is that agencies have found themselves now in this position of being the arbiters of privacy or the guardians of privacy. And we're not going to get it right. We're going to certainly, in some cases, anger the people that want to see everything or the people that don't want anything out. And ultimately, the state legislatures are, in some cases, behind the power curve on this, and agencies are left to kind of struggle with that. But we need to be able to get out there and to show these things, good and bad. You can't have it one way. You got it both good and bad. And I think the public will become more acquainted and attuned to the tough things that we do, the decisions we make, and the challenges we face in policing in today's society.
Thank you. You briefly mentioned some of the assistance you've gotten on the research and funding side, but can you elaborate more on some of the assistance you received regarding the implementation of body-worn cameras, and what assistance would be the greatest help from you to you in the future?
Yes, certainly. We as an agency, of course, when we started, there wasn't a lot of assistance from the government. There was no body camera toolkit. There were no documentation out there. It was kind of fragments of things around the country. So we kind of had to learn by falling on our faces on a few things. So what's been a benefit for us is these tools that are now available. We've been able to go back and look at those policies and procedures, and the things that weren't maybe 100%, we were able to tweak them a little bit and get our policies and procedures much better than they certainly were before those things came in. We certainly are challenged, even though we've had the cameras for a while, we're still challenged one of the things that we've recently asked assistance for from the training and technical assistance side is on relationships and building systems and workflow processes with our prosecutor's office. And it's important that we don't forget that they're one of the largest consumers of this video. And so it's a very important piece and something that we weren't perhaps as attuned to as we probably should have been early on in the process.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and taking time away from the conference. We really appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Todd.